So here we are, a little cafe in central Prague, close to where Kafka worked. And his work was in an office. It was an insurance company assessing risk for accidents at work. And I'm sure he would have come to places like this to work on his stories. And I just want to share one with you. It's called Poseidon, written in 1920. And it's typically Kafka. But this one is so short, it's actually only 2 paragraphs. But it's brimming with humor and irony. So I'll read you the first few lines of it. So Poseidon sat at his desk doing figures. The administration of all the waters gave him endless work. He could have had assistants, as many as he wanted, and he did have very many. And since he took his job very seriously, he would in the end go over all the figures and calculations himself, and thus his assistants were of little help to him. It cannot be said that he enjoyed his work. He did it only because it had been assigned to him. In fact, he already filed many petitions for, as he put it, more cheerful work. But every time the offer of something different was made to him, it would turn out that nothing suited him quite as well as his present position. Because he is Poseidon, so being in the sea is kind of the best place for him, but even the gods are troubled and cropped and made claustrophobic by administration. And of course, the notion that he has to do administration for the waters themselves. Okay, this is typically Kafkaesque little story. And anybody who's ever wanted to change things with the climate, like COP events or through any project which you may want to do at a local level, you come up against these incredible barriers and protocols and paperwork and rules and regulations that you have to do in order just to achieve a very small fact. And so therefore, next time you're ever trying to do, let's say, a Climate Academy project, whether that's an event or publication, and you run up against these blocks to what you want to do and these annoying administrative tasks, then again, Kafka is on your side. So, in contrast to Poseidon, Kafka wrote his novel, The Castle, which is, in my edition anyway, over 260 pages, which doesn't go anywhere. It just stops. And that's kind of the point. The suffocating levels of bureaucracy and administration that Kay, the hero of The Castle, has to deal with means he just doesn't get anywhere in the job that he is assigned to do. The details are explained in the student book. But that person, Kay, shows remarkable agency. He shows autonomy. And it's for that reason that Hannah Arendt, the German philosopher, picked out Kay, the character, for special attention. Because that's exactly what we need in terms of climate change. We need people who are able, through just sheer resilience and sheer effort and determination, to achieve stuff, to get things done, who have purpose. And the Prague, which is around today, of course, is much busier, it's much more frantic, hectic city, because since Kafka's death, the whole of Western civilization, we've gone down the road of progress, efficiency, speed, acceleration. And the question is, for what? What's it all for? And this kind of dizzying acceleration of driven by capitalist forces really can make people feel very estranged, feel very alienated. And so it's good to be able to identify, even if it's with a fictional character, but of course that fictional character comes from Kafka's own mind and heart. He offers us these archetypes, he offers us these people with which we can at least feel understood. And over my shoulder, this building, if we could look a bit higher, behind me there is actually the castle that probably inspired Kafka to write The Castle. And in that sense, the castle represents, by certain readings of it, you can understand that the castle represents like the divine or some sort of inaccessible other, something beyond. And that's just the case of the human condition, isn't it? Like, we are pulled by purpose. We are creatures of purpose. We are, we're craving for meaning. The climate crisis forces us to ask those basic questions. These planetary boundaries which we're confronting, they force us to ask the basic questions of, well, what are we doing? Because what we're doing at the moment can't continue. So we have to change something, just because the laws of physics and chemistry don't allow us to go any further. So we should take the opportunity of the climate crisis to ask the basic questions about, well, what is the economy for? Why do we go to work? Why do we produce all? What is it all for? And the bravery which Kafka took to think those things through his novels is a great pattern for us to follow, a great pathway for us to follow in our own thoughts, in the own choices that we make as, well, now when you're a student at school, like, well, what do you want to do? What makes sense to you? What is, and I'm not saying that everybody has to lead, and of course, everyone doesn't have to lead an artistic life, but it has to be a life which is rooted in a meaning that has meaning and purpose for you, and which makes sense of your skills and your interests. And just to finish, I think it's important to pick out and focus on COP for a second, because if you've followed COP events or even been to a COP event or tracked it in the news, there's something which is extraordinarily Kafkaesque, because in a COP event, even there, everybody's there for what purpose? Well, Article 2 of the UNFCCC is that it is to stabilize concentrations of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that is, which is safe for human civilization. So that is an organization which is set up with one singular purpose. And yet, when you attend it, or when you watch it, when you observe it, or if you look at the results of COP, what's the end product of all that activity? The end product is that anthropogenic greenhouse gases have only ever increased. So even at that, even at the heart of an organization which is set up, an intergovernmental organization which is set up to achieve a specific goal, it is just drowned or made impossible by all of the bureaucratic and administrative and, let's say, legal complications. Now, I know that the world is better for COP. Without COP, who knows where we'd be? And it's a mechanism which we should invest in, and it's a mechanism which we should use more effectively. But in a way, for the moment, in its, let's say, unsatisfactory state, kind of demonstrates so much of what Kafka understood about how bureaucracies can kind of colonize your mind and can colonize. And so within those systems, you get people, let's say, who think that progress has been made. I live in Brussels. I've had many conversations with people that work in DG Climate, and they're quite proud of, in general, not all, but in general, they're quite proud of EU commitments on climate. They say that Europe is leading the way and all of this. But of course, the EU might be on track for its own target, but that target's got nothing to do with the science. So even if you're on track for what you want to achieve, there's this weird sense in which, hey, you're not plugged into what actually matters, which is the stabilization of greenhouse gases, which is defined by science and by the carbon budget. So there, even there in the, the EU is a very advanced, technical, scientific, in many ways an enlightened thing. So EU has got many things in favor of it, but even there, the very epicenter of something which is trying to achieve something, you have this sort of weird fog, even in the minds of good people who are trying to achieve it. And that's like the castle. It's like people around the castle who, let's say, are just doing their job and in a way might even take pride in their job. But who's asking the big question? Who's asking the question about what it all adds up to? And so Kafka, through his novels, through irony, through the sharpness with which he defined his characters, he managed to bring to the surface some really poignant, sharp truths about Western civilization. And in that sense, he's a bit of a prophet of the 21st century. Now, Kafka also wrote a much longer book mentioned in the Climate Academy textbook called The Castle. And The Castle goes on for pages, and in contrast to Poseidon, goes into 200, well, in my edition anyway, goes to 260 odd pages. And the point